Welcome, guys, to another edition of the BGO Blind Pig, the official podcast of BGObsession.com, home to your burgundy and gold obsession since 2009. If you're new to the podcast, please check us out on YouTube. We also are available on any audio podcast provider out there. And most importantly, come visit us on BGObsession.com. We are the top Washington Commanders fan forum, and we welcome all new members. We've had a ton of new members come join in the last couple of weeks, so please come on aboard, and I promise you, you will love every minute of it. So, biggest game of the season. Is there any doubt in anyone's mind that the Thursday night is the biggest challenge that we're going to face so far in 2024?
It is, without a doubt, the biggest challenge and biggest game that we're going to be facing in 2024. But much like Dan Quinn said today in his press conference, these are the moments that you want to be involved in. You want to be in these big game situations. You want your team to be able to embrace these moments. And this is essentially what you work for, right? It's no doubt a big game, but no doubt something that is going to provide invaluable experience for our team moving forward as they continue to grow as a unit.
So you have to think that the Commanders are coming into this game pissed the F off. Somebody alluded to it in our Steelers post-game podcast. I don't remember if it was Bob or Tony or you, Paul, but that was a theme in our post-Steelers podcast, is that these guys are pissed because they know they had that game wrapped up. They had the momentum, and they let it slip away. And they let it slip away on the basis of their own errors, not so much anything the Steelers did in that fourth quarter. We shot ourselves in the foot. How much of a factor, Bob and Tony, do you guys think it's going to be the we're effing pissed factor on Thursday night?
I think it's gonna be a big factor, and I especially think it's going to be a big factor with the receivers and the defensive line. I feel like if any, I know what I would feel like if I were part of one of those two units. And I would be seriously lit up. If I were a wide receiver, my goal would be to catch everything thrown to me and the guy next to me. My gosh, I cannot imagine that these guys are going to do anything but come out hot and bothered Thursday night. Mm-hmm. And Philadelphia has looked better the last few weeks than maybe they did to start the season. They are still not the same Philadelphia that played in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. It is just not the same football team. And I realize guys in the NFL don't think this way, but I would not want to be facing the Commanders right now after the game yesterday. So,
yeah, same. I think they're definitely going to be heated, and like all, pretty much every game, they're also going to be prepared. I don't think nothing else, they'll be prepared, but they're definitely going to be pissed based off the last game. And I saw some quote, Cosme was mad at himself for missing a block on, I think, a Jaden run. And so he's going to be pissed. Like, yeah, I think the mentality is right. They're going to be aggressive and ready to go.
So I'm going to do what I always do because I'm not that clever. So I'm going to rattle off some statistics just to give you an idea. And I will confess to you guys, I was a little shocked when I looked at the Eagles' offense and defense of just how good they look statistically. It kind of took me aback a little bit. So let me run through those numbers. First of all, the Eagles are on a 5-game winning streak. And it's hard to have a 5-game winning streak in the NFL, although we have been on our own little run. But that is they've beaten the Packers, the Saints, the Browns, the Giants, the Bengals, the Jags, and the Cowboys. So kind of a mix of decent teams, although probably really the Bengals are the only really good team that they've beaten so far. They lost to Atlanta and Philly, and they lost to the Bucs in Tampa. But let me run through the offense and defensive rankings for you. On offense, they are 6th overall in yards and 7th in points. And again, that kind of took me aback a little bit because I didn't realize they were having that kind of a season. They are much more dominant on the rushing offense. They're second in the NFL in yards, second in touchdowns. So that is an attention getter. They're only 20th in yards passing, but 10th in yards, 10th in touchdowns for passing. On defense, again, get ready for this. They're 2nd overall in yards, and they are 5th in limiting points. They're good on both sides of the ball. They're good both against the pass and the rush. They're 3rd in passing yards and 5th in passing touchdowns. They are 5th in rushing yards and 8th in rushing touchdowns. So, and again, I'm not saying statistics always tells the complete story, but if you're just looking at numbers, this is a damn good team we're coming up against.
It's absolutely a good team, no doubt, and obviously the class of our division for quite some time. And I'm not discounting anything that we have done this year because everything that we have done as a team has completely surpassed expectations. But eventually, we are going to have to beat one of these upper echelon teams. And I know it's only been, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, but if we continue to lose to these top end teams, it's eventually going to become a story. So this team does need to find a way to win against these types of teams. We've certainly competed. We've been right there with the Pittsburghs and Baltimores of the world every step of the way throughout each of those games. We gave those clubs everything they can handle, but we have to switch the narrative now and find a way to come up on the right end of the scoreboard, so to speak.
Yeah, we struggled, right? We struggle with the Bucs, and so I don't know if we beaten a really good team. I guess some people would say Chicago was on.
Wasn't Arizona leading the West right now?
Arizona, that win looks pretty damn good right now, right?
It breaks off them.
All right.
They spanked who'd they play this past weekend at Arizona? They spanked them.
They beat the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they like 36-3 or something. I mean, it was in that range.
So, all right, I gotta ask: do we really have to beat one of those upper echelon teams this season? We are so far ahead of schedule. None of us would have predicted that we would be 7-3, 10 games into this season with a rookie quarterback and a rebuild from the ground up. I know what everybody said in the offseason. It's not a rebuild. We're going to, you turn over 60% of your roster, it's fucking rebuild. Period. And I don't know. I don't feel any pressure necessarily to beat teams that have been perennial playoff teams and even Super Bowl teams. Right? I mean, it's not that low. 2 years ago, the Eagles were in the Super Bowl. I feel like we're going to be in this game. I will probably, although I haven't made up my mind yet, I'll have to in the next few minutes, but I will probably pick us to win this football game. But I don't feel any pressure to have to beat Philadelphia. They're a really good football team. Although John threw out a bunch of numbers that quite frankly surprised me too, John. Now I got a couple of numbers that surprised me even more. Philadelphia has 25 sacks on the year. Anybody know how many the Commanders have on the year?
Less.
27. 2 more.
Are you saying they sacked the opposing quarterback?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The Philly defense has 25 sacks on the year. The Washington defense has 27 sacks on the year. Anybody like to guess how many tackles for a loss Philadelphia has on defense? 41. Washington, 47. It doesn't look like it in the rankings, but I don't feel any type of inferiority complex defensively. I'll tell you where I do feel an inferiority complex, and the only guy on that offense right now that scares the bejesus out of me from the Philadelphia side is Saquon Barkley. The dude is just running over anybody, and if anybody watched the highlights from last weekend, the backwards hurdle over a defender has got to be one of the most amazing plays I have ever seen on a football field. I don't mean here, I mean in, what am I, 57? In 52 years of watching NFL football, 51 years of watching NFL football, that is one of the most amazing plays I have ever seen. The dude is stunning, and I'm really a little scared of what he might do on Thursday night.
We have not. I think in the last pod somebody mentioned that we had not let certain players, quarterbacks, or receivers like take over the game, marquee players. We really have not, which is in counter to what we've seen in previous years. We really haven't let a running back own us and like put the game on his back and dominate us all season long. We've had running backs that had good numbers, but we faced some pretty good running backs in 2024, and we've mostly kept them in check. I'll tell you who I'm
Derrick Henry. I would argue Henry had a pretty good day. But otherwise,
he had a pretty good day, but a Derrick Henry pretty good day, a good day, not a pretty good day, is 200 yards. So I would argue that we still held him in check to an extent. But I'll tell you who I'm worried about. And maybe it's because he's my fantasy quarterback and I'm kicking ass and inexplicably kicking ass in fantasy football this year. But I'm a little scared of Jalen Hurts. And I'll tell you why. If you listen to NFL experts, you'll kind of think Jalen Hurts is having a down year. Well, Jalen Hurts is completing 70% of his passes. I don't know what universe we live in where that's a down year, but that's a pretty incredible number over, the first 10 weeks. He's had 12 touchdowns passing, only 5 interceptions. Now, he has been sacked 26 times. I thought that's where you were going, Bob. He has been sacked quite a bit. And he's not running for as many, highlight reel kind of touchdowns as in the previous years, but he's having a pretty damn good season. And he's not making a lot of mistakes. So I think
he's got 10 rushing TDs.
Yeah. Well, I just don't, I guess when I started looking at the numbers, I'm just kind of surprised because my overall impression was Jalen Hurts is not the same guy as he was 3 years ago. Well, hell, he looks pretty good, at least on paper. So anyway, what do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of those classic NFC East type games. NFC East games traditionally have come down to being able to run the football and stop the run. How many times have we heard that year after year after year? And I think that is going to ring true again this coming week. I think you invest absolutely everything into taking Saquon Barkley out of the game, and outside of that, you take your chances. Our team, since the John Allen injury, I'm just going to rhyme off a few numbers here. We gave up 196 rushing yards against the Bears, which I was actually surprised about because we obviously played pretty well defensively in that game. 164 rushing yards against the Giants and 140 against the Steelers. I think we have to try to make, again, Philadelphia as one-dimensional as possible, and just put every ounce of energy that we have into stopping Saquon Barkley. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a long day for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just to put a number on Barkley, Bob was singing his praises earlier. we're just like 1 week into the back half of the schedule in 2024, and he's got 991 yards. I mean, he's already had a damn good season, right? I mean, if this was week 17, we'd be like, yeah, it was a little bit of a down year for Saquon Barkley, but 991 yards, and
he's averaging 110 a game.
Yeah, I mean, that's
actually
crazy.
More than that, because they've only played 9 games, not 10. Yeah, no, he's averaging about 110 a game. That's, in this day and age, that's amazing. Although I still have nightmares about AJ Brown from last year. So I'm going to be very interested in the injury report in Washington this week, and whether or not we're going to see one Mr. Marshawn Lattimore.
With an L. Are you thinking of a name beginning with L by any chance?
Yes, I am. And that would Lattimore playing Thursday night will make all the difference in whether or not this defense can focus on Barkley. Yes, that will allow them to sneak Martin or Chen down closer to the box and play nose up against Barkley, as opposed to having to drop both safeties and worry about the wide receivers on the outside. Because Smith's not having a bad year either.
No, he's got 400 and almost 500 yards, 4 touchdowns himself. So it's not like Brown's the only guy they got.
Yeah,
poor Benjamin St-Juste, man. Somebody, I don't know what we got to do. Let's start a GoFundMe account. I don't know what we got to do, but I feel bad for the guy, man, because he's being asked to do things that he simply cannot do. And it's gotten to the point where even when he makes a good effort. Even when he's on guys, he just can't finish the play most of the time. And it's not his fault. I mean, I think he's playing his ass off. I think he's trying. I think he's coachable, but I just don't think he's got the talent to cover the guys he's being asked to cover. Maybe it'll look a lot better when he's on the number 2, when he's on, Smith and not Brown. I just don't know. But God, I think we're going to draft a corner with our first or second pick next year on top of
that. I had this thought earlier today. I won't be surprised. I'm not predicting this, but I won't be surprised Thursday night if in our base offense, because we've actually seen them play with 3 linebackers and 4 DBs instead of going with 5 DBs a lot of time here recently. But I won't be surprised if on our base offense we don't see Sanristel on the outside and St-Juste take a breather on the bench if Lattimore plays. I won't be surprised if it's not Lattimore and Sanristel playing when there's only 2 cornerbacks, and when we bring in 3, it's St-Juste and Sanristel slides inside.
Yeah, I think you could be right on that, Bob. I don't know. It's hard to know what the coaches think, right?
Yeah.
They certainly keep putting him out there, but I mean, who else are we going to put out there?
Right. At this point, there really isn't an option. But once Lattimore starts playing, I think maybe Mike Sanristel starts seeing more snaps than St-Juste does, which in a way I kind of hate. I mean, I'm not as big a St-Juste guy as Paul is. Paul is the OG St-Juste fan around here, fellow Canadian there. But I really like the kid, and he's hung on for a long time here. He's, as they say in English soccer, he's one of our own, right? I mean, we drafted him. He survived the Rivera years, which is not easy to do if you go back and look at our draft history. I would very much like the kid to hang on and continue to play here because I've got a soft spot for him. But right now, if I'm the coaching staff, I'm thinking very seriously about Lattimore and Sanristel in the base defense, and then bringing St-Juste in when we need a third cornerback.
And to add to your point, Bob, Sanristel has been getting better and better and better the entire season. You just see the growth happen. And confidence continue to develop more and more on a weekly basis. And just to circle back to your comments about Lattimore, you said it quite often. If he plays, I heard that comment come up quite often. Part of me feels like he was probably healthy enough to play against Pittsburgh, but they're just saving him because they know that the magnitude of the Philadelphia game in terms of playoff implications is far more important.
And Paul, I think you're right
Maybe.
about that.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing that we, as fans, we don't always recognize is it's really hard to show up on Monday and be handed the playbook and be expected to know what the hell you're doing on any given play, like 4 days later, whatever it
It
was.
wasn't even Monday. It was Tuesday, wasn't it?
Right. I don't know what it was,
yeah.
but I mean, it does matter. Like, you can't just say, hey, cover the guy that goes deep. It's a little bit more complicated than that. So I think that also could have been a factor. Just like
I don't
giving
think he
him a little
suited up for practice until Thursday, right? He sat out on Wednesday. Maybe
So
he did. Yeah.
So we've had some pretty good. I will say this. I think our performance over the last decade against Dallas and the Giants has been pretty mixed. But I feel like we travel really well to Philadelphia. We've had even some of the bad Rivera teams made games out of it up in Philadelphia, at least for a half. I feel like we travel up there pretty well. And I won't get into some of the experiences I've had up there on the sidelines. But I've seen I saw an epic win during the Gibbs era that I will never forget that got us to the playoffs. So I just think we have some pretty good historical mojo going up there on the road. But what do you guys think it's going to take to pull out a win? What's going to be the key in this game if you had to pick one thing?
So we've talked a lot about the defense. The offense needs to execute. I think we need to hit 30 points offensively. Receivers obviously need to have better hands, but I think offensively, we need to be better on first down. Our secondary targets need to be able to step up. They obviously let us down this past week. And I think that we have to be able to find a way to get Jaden Daniels a bit more involved with his feet. That extra element that he brings with his mobility needs to come into play this week because it was non-existent against Pittsburgh.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, I think we need to win time of possession and get back to what we've been doing and sustain drives, get the running game going, and like you guys said, use Jaden's mobility and able to pick up those cheap first downs, and keep the weapons from Philadelphia on the sideline as long as possible to fully execute the offense we like to run.
Yeah, I agree. I cannot agree more with you, Paul. I felt like I don't know whether it was intentional. I think one thing we don't know is how are the ribs. We don't know that. I don't know if they were protecting him in the Steelers game, but they definitely were not allowing him to use his legs a lot. And even when he did try to use his legs, it was kind of more of like a late decision on his part. And a lot of times he got caught before he could escape, which is not something we're used to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think if they're going to win on the road against the Eagles, they're going to have to unleash the Kraken a little bit. They're going to have to set aside the concerns and go for it, and maybe take some chances with Jaden. I feel you on that.
So I got curious, John. You were talking about how well we travel. We do travel well. Last 4 games, we're 2-2 at Philadelphia. And that includes last year, which was a come from behind overtime loss. That was the game that all of us sat around afterwards and went, we really should have gone for 2 instead of kicking the field goal. I would have rather lost this going for 2.
Oh,
yeah. Than going to overtime, and we lost it on a cheap field goal to Philadelphia in overtime. So yeah, I mean we play them tough in Philadelphia, or at least we did under Ron Rivera. Oddly enough, maybe Ron just had their number. I don't know, but yeah, no, I absolutely agree. The other thing I think that is going to be key is we've got to get to Jalen. He can't sit on his spot. He can't go through his progressions. He is not he is not the same quarterback off script that he is when you allow him to throw in time, in rhythm, and they have got to figure out how to get to him and disrupt that rhythm and give the defensive backs a chance, right? Even if Lattimore plays, this is Lattimore's first game in the NFC East if he plays, and we've been saying it for years, and I think the rest of the NFL probably hates hearing it by now, but NFC East football is just a little different, and especially when you're playing in Philadelphia, because those fans are a little different, and not in a good way, a little different. There aren't going to be flowers and chocolate for anybody that shows up in burgundy and gold Thursday night.
Fortunately, it is not Christmas yet, so we don't have to be concerned for Santa Claus's safety. But yeah,
Right.
Well, I'm going to throw out the random nugget here. The Eagles kicker Jake Elliott, who's a pretty good kicker, is 12 of 15. He has not made a kick of 50 yards plus this season. All three of his misses have come on 50 or yard or longer field goals. So that could just be something to keep in the back of your mind if we're ahead by one late in the fourth quarter and they are driving. If we can keep them out beyond 50 yards, that might bode well for us. But anyway,
anybody heard if we're getting Seibert? Speaking of kickers, has anybody heard if we're getting Seibert back, or is it going to be wonder replacement again that we're all thrilled with?
Gonzalez. I had to look at my notes. Yeah.
I started to say Rodriguez, and then I went, no, I don't think that's right. So I'm just going to not say anything, and somebody will fill it in. Thanks, John.
I think that's one of the big questions this week, right? Are we getting B-Rob back? Are we getting I don't know, man. Who else are we missing? Coleman?
Wiley.
No, yeah. Coleman played on Sunday.
Did he play? Okay.
Yeah.
Coleman played on Sunday. Wiley was out. I want to know how Biotic is doing, although he did come back in the game.
Yeah. Am I the only one that wants to call him Biatch? Is that wrong? I don't know why. I have no idea how to spell Biotic, so I'm like Biatch. I don't know. Anyway, sorry about that. Well, is it time for have we gotten there, guys? Is it time to make some bold predictions?
Yeah, we've gotten there.
All right. Who wants to lead off? Paul.
You're taking me back to my little league days. I was always the leadoff batter, so
okay.
We'll do it again. Listen, I would love to celebrate with some tomato pie and Scrabble on Sunday. If you haven't checked out Boone's Opposing Delicacies podcast, I strongly suggest you do. Anyways, I feel like this game on Sunday is going to be, on Thursday is going to be a bit too much for us. I feel like we're just at that point in the season where we got too many guys that are banged up. We've had some really, really hard-fought battles since that Baltimore game. Like, we played Baltimore, we played Chicago in a close one. Pittsburgh was a complete grind yesterday. And even that New York game, I mean, we had to play well into the fourth quarter. We had to grind to the end in all of those games. The Eagles, on the other hand, they've had the luxury in 3 of their last 4 games of being able to sit some of their players late in the games because they've had blowouts against Cincinnati, New York, and Dallas. And I think those kinds of things all add up. I alluded to, the alarming numbers against the rush our last 3 games. I don't know how well that bodes against an Eagles team that's really good at running the football. I think we're going to find a way to keep the game close. We'll keep it within a score going into the fourth quarter, but I think in the end, Philadelphia just finds a way to pull away. I'm going to say Philadelphia 37, Washington 27.
All right. And what do you got, Bob?
Wow. I don't want to follow that.
What
That's what I got.
what do you got, Tony?
All right. Well, yeah.
We'll give Bob a couple minutes to compose himself.
Wow.
All right. Yeah, I think the timing's just not on our side this week. I think our road teams on Thursdays, it's always tough. The Eagles are actually good, and they're good on both sides of the ball. And then on top of that, we're banged up, and we're uncertain on which kind of guys we'll have ready to go. But I do think we'll be prepared. It won't be for lack of effort. I think we're definitely going to scrap and we'll be in it. But I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to go 26-23 Eagles in a tough game. I just don't think we have the horses and just the timing of this game to predict a win. Whereas if we were playing like the Titans or one of the sorry teams that are on our schedule, I think we'd still be able to manufacture a win. But that's what I'm going to have to go this week.
All right, Bob. You're on the clock, buddy.
Yeah. Now I'm on the clock. You know what? I said it last week. I'll say it again. I haven't seen a reason to not pick us, and so I'm going to keep picking us. I'm going to stick with that. I don't think it's an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. But like I said in the wrap-up pod about the Steelers, I think this team comes out pissed. I think maybe we get a couple of pieces back. I think maybe we see Lattimore for the first time, and that field starts to tilt just a little bit for the defense. I think our defense is underrated compared to the Philadelphia defense. And I don't think Mr. Hurts has let's just say I think Daniels is probably the better quarterback in this particular matchup.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go with Washington. I don't know that we're going to be quite as high flying as maybe I've picked in the last few weeks. We'll say 28-21.
All right. So I'm going to, Derek did chime in. He wasn't able to be here tonight because he's a hardworking man, had some work challenges, but Derek thinks we're going to come out angry in this one. And I think that's probably a pretty good prediction. But he has Washington winning this one 31-23, said that Philly scores late to make it an 8-point game. So that implies that Derek thinks we're going to have this well in hand going into the, as the clock winds down and Philly gets some garbage time points. So, I'm typically like a vote with your heart, not your head kind of a guy, which gets me into trouble sometimes. If you just want to look at my BGO NFL Pick'em record this year, you'll see that that's the case. But this week I'm kind of with Tony. I think we're hitting the tough stretch of our schedule, and we're going to find out that this team is really game and they play really hard and the coaches coach really hard. And Jaden Daniels has a ton of talent, but I think we're going to start to see that it's year one of a major rebuild and that maybe we've been outperforming expectations for quite a while now. And maybe we may come back to the crowd a little bit in the NFC East. So I can't pick us to win this one. I would not be at all surprised if they make me look like a dumbass and come out and kick the hell out of the Eagles in their home stadium. I certainly think it's possible. I do think they'll be angry. I just don't know. Again, I'm going back to those stats that I rattled off. The Eagles are really good on defense and they're really good on offense statistically. And I don't know if anger and disappointment in last week's result is enough to get us over the hump. So I'm actually going to I think this is the first time I predicted a loss this year. I'm not sure, but I'm picking the Eagles 31-21, which gives me no joy. But we'll see what happens. So that's three of us predicting a loss and two of us predicting a win. So I think that's probably the most mixed bag we've had so far in our predictions this year. And that's the way it should be, right? It's a division game. It's the top two teams in the division. It's a road game on a short week. And so who knows what's going to happen. But Any closing thoughts before we wrap it up, guys?
I would just say if we do lose, I don't think it's any grand indictment on the team or the season. I just think it's just a situation of this Thursday night game. But I still think we're in good position the rest of the year, no matter the result of this week.
And to build on to that point, Tony, that's totally correct. To build on to it, we have the luxury of being 2-0 currently in the division. You get to 4 wins in your division, you are setting yourself up very, very well to get in the playoffs. So big picture, you get a split against Philadelphia. Worst case scenario, split against Dallas. You've positioned yourself to be in a very good spot to qualify for some postseason football. And how nice would that be?
Yeah, I think with the caveat of you never can predict a division game with any confidence. This is a year where we should sweep Dallas. I feel that way. We should sweep Dallas this year based on talent and coaching and all the rest of that. Whether we will or not, I don't know. But I actually feel like the Dallas games are going to be more consequential in the long run than this one on Thursday. But I would love to win it, man. I'm not gonna lie on that front. Bob, you got anything to wrap us up with, man?
I believe in our coaching staff. Philadelphia had to do some crazy things in the offseason to fix that coaching staff. I still don't feel like Sirianni is comfortable. They're in Philadelphia. Yeah, they're winning. Yeah, the defense is playing better. Yeah, the offense is playing better. They brought in a couple of guys that are doing a fairly decent job. But, right now, I don't think there's a coaching staff in the NFL that's better than ours. And on a short week, I think coaching matters. Maybe more than it does at any other point in time in the season. And while we're all talking about it's a short week, remember, Philadelphia played the late game yesterday in Dallas and then had to fly home. Whereas we were in Washington. I would much rather play at home the week before and then travel for the Thursday night game than play away on Sunday and have the Thursday night game at home. I think this is a better setup for us, especially since Philadelphia is such a short trip. So I don't know. I'm bullish at the moment.
Yeah, hopefully we talked a lot about the injuries. Hopefully we get some of these key guys back on the field, because I think you could definitely see, I think that was definitely a factor against the Steelers. Who knows what would have happened if we'd had a healthy B-Rob out there. Just that one player alone, I think, could have made a big difference. But, well, thanks, guys. Good job tonight. And for those of you that have hung in this long, please check us out on YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We have lots of views, but we could use some more subscribers so you don't miss any of our tantalizing episodes. Check us out on any audio podcast platform. We're out there. And most importantly, check us out at bgobsession.com. We are absolutely the best Washington Commanders fan forum and have been for a long time. We're the internet's best kept secret when it comes to Washington fans. So come check us out. We'd love to have you. We have some great game day chats. We're running contests even now that you can join in on. So come visit us, and we would love to have you. Until next time, guys, that'll do, pigs. That'll do.